out. Tonight is Daniel Frank's last presentation for this Ora Torah series. Perhaps he'll grace us with his presence in the next one. Fly all the way from Israel this way. So Daniel is talking tonight about the Shema, and because of the end of Shavuot, we've started a bit later than usual. So feel free to eat. Obviously, you'll receive your orders as Daniel is presenting and while we'll be talking. I think it'll be good to have a break at 7:45 and till 8 o'clock, and then we'll go again as usual from 8 till 9 o'clock. And we can even go a bit later, 9:15, since we're starting a bit later. So, thank you, Daniel.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Before I start, just you'll notice a little spelling mistake on top of the page. I apologise about that. My spell checker has not been fed in all the Hebrew words. So, little S there. Yeah, sweet. Hope everybody had a very powerful Shavuot experience. Didn't eat too much cheesecake. Clearly I did. You'll forgive me. Yeah, so in the spirit of Shavuot, which is all about receiving the Torah and learning about the Jewish sources and traditions, we're here tonight, which is great to see such a good turnout to continue that learning process. Thank you very much again to Michelle and her team for organising everything, and thanks to the Soho team. Keep up the good work. So, tonight I want to touch on... G'day. Oh, tonight I'm going to be talking about the Shema prayer, which I imagine most of you are familiar with. What I want to get out tonight is really a deeper appreciation to what the Shema is all about, what the themes are, why we say it, and hopefully it gives you a bit of meaning next time you say it, or in a place where it's the appropriate thing to say or learn. We'll start by just giving you a guide of what I've prepared here, the source sheets. Got a series of sources, the first one obviously being the Shema itself, both in Hebrew and in English. And then at the very end, got a little cute little picture, but after that we've got the Shema prayer guide, which I'm hoping summarises what we'll be talking about today. So don't read it yet, but you can take it away and you can keep it with you as a sort of reference page to remind you of the deeper meanings of the Shema itself whenever you need to say the Shema. What we'll do to start with is just in your groups, or maybe on your own, we'll get you to actually read through the Shema itself, in the English or Hebrew, whichever you prefer, just to familiarise yourself with the words. I know for myself, the last time I actually read it in English was, well, besides preparing for this evening, was quite a while ago, because quite often you read things without thinking about it, and you don't actually try to figure out what the actual meaning is. So I'll give you guys about 5 or 10 minutes. Source number 1, Shema prayer, there's 3 paragraphs. Have a read through, English or Hebrew, and also while you're doing that, try to think of any questions that come to mind, because I'll try, as hard as I can at least, to answer those questions and to build a bit of knowledge. There you go. So yeah, so go for it, give you 5 minutes. Source number 1, it starts on page 1, ends on the top of page 2. Have a read, familiarise yourself with the content of a Shema, and then after that 5 minutes we'll have a go delving deeper into it. Have fun. And feel free as well, actually, if you want to do it in groups, to maybe start to question some of the, bring to the discussion around the questions that you have, potentially about some of the words, what the themes are, anything that doesn't make sense. You can write it down if you've got a question. Go for it. Give you 5 minutes. I believe from Ora Torah's website. guys another minute. Okay, I think we'll just cut it short there. I think this is a very important thing to do, is always try and familiarise yourself with the source before you start getting into the depth. So that's what I wanted to achieve there. The first thing I want to ask, based on that quick read through now and any prior knowledge that you have, what is the Shema? If you were to define what type of passage it is, what would that be, one word or that phrase? How would you define it?
Command.
Sorry?
Command.
Command. Any other ideas?
Declaration.
Declaration.
Contract.
Contract. Okay. Anything else? Would you say it's a prayer?
Yes.
Yes. Why would you say it's a prayer?
Yeah.
What?
That's got you, Daniel.
Not reading the title. That doesn't count. Would you, Alexander? You said it was a prayer. Why would you call it a prayer?
I guess by like saying it, you're supposed to be like feeling close to like Hashem and Torah, and He teaches us. So in that way, it's a prayer because it's deferring your attention away from yourself to Hashem.
Okay.
Can you just repeat that?
So, if I understood you right, Alexandra, the process of saying the Shema helps to build that connection with God, because you're trying to, you're building the relationship and sort of elevating yourself. That's what you're saying, yeah. So by doing that sort of action, going through that process, that's typically what a prayer is as well. It's kind of building a relationship. That's what you're saying, yeah. Okay. Does anyone disagree with that? Does anyone totally throw that out of the window? Anyone? Okay, why do you guys think it's what did you say, declaration?
No, I said
contract?
command.
Command. You said command. Why would you say command?
Well, because it listens, Israel.
Okay.
Like,
So it's, what is this, a series of obligations, would you say? A series of commands that God is commanding to us,
yeah.
to the reader?
I didn't think about it as obligation, but you shall love and
That's
yeah, I
right
don't know.
as well inside.
Okay, do you want to elaborate on that?
That if you do not do that, then the earth will do that.
We do
So
have
you have what you have to do
Yeah.
to be clean and to be nice. If you don't do that, then we say just whispering because it's not nice, but it's a real threat. So it's
Okay, so
like it's a vow.
Yeah.
And at the same time, yeah, it's because we know that if we don't do that,
Yeah.
I think it's like an affirmation. If you do love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and your mind,
Yeah.
this will happen. And if you do not, I'm affirming that this will also happen.
So it's some sort of declaration, affirmation attached to with a series of consequences. So what was that? Pathway. What do you mean by that? Some sort of like. Yeah, go on. Explain.
There are the affirmations, but past that as well, there's ways to, I command you all these matters of how to live a life. It refers to children and it talks about children, so it seems to be about how to live your life and then those generations of follow.
Okay, cool. So it's some sort of instruction for life.
In a
So-
sense,
yeah.
and a containment of justification and
Okay.
few phrases that then are expanded.
So, Casey, you were about to say something?
Can it be a prayer at the same time?
I don't know. You answered it. What do you think? Can it be a prayer at the same time?
Well, just because like something it's telling you what to do and you're like, pray, do this, do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not praying that you will do this, do that. This is telling you, you're reminding us like, affirming, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
So you would be agreeing with Michelle when you said some sort of affirmation. Okay.
You can also say it's a bit of a definition almost, at least the first part, that
Yeah.
we are Israel, God is our God, there is only one God. This part pretty much in many ways comes the Jewish nation.
Right.
And then the things that come afterwards is Judaism can be in many ways described as a living memory. Most of everything we do is in memory of all things that happen and in preparation for things to come. And everything that comes afterwards tries to ensure that we do not forget that first truth. That we are Israel, God is our God, and we're not one.
Okay, so you're saying
Reminder.
it's a statement of faith, followed by a description of how that faith is passed through the generations?
Yeah, how that faith should be, or the importance of maintaining that, remembering that.
Right,
or
right.
belief.
Okay, very nice. Oh, we have some more ideas. This is getting good. Yes.
That's all of those reasons are why I thought also it's sort of like a contract, because God is saying, I'm your God, I'm the one who brought you out of Egypt, but it's so important that you believe in me, you have to, it says twice the ways that you have to do these things to remember about me. It's so important. And then the obligations and the repercussions as well, consequences.
So how would you sum that up in one phrase?
Well,
Some sort of
kind of like a contract. I mean,
contract,
yeah,
legal,
because it's been
legal
laid down.
document.
Okay, this is how it is, and if you agree, then we've got a partnership going.
All right, cool. What I'll do now, through this evening, what I want to do is kind of touch on a few ideas, sort of breaking down different parts of the Shema, and through that we'll try and understand the answer to that question. Is it a declaration? Is it a prayer? Is it a combo? Is it a statement of faith? All these ideas that we've talked about now.
And can you tell us when it was put together?
When it was put together. Okay, so the Shema itself, 3 paragraphs, right? The 3 paragraphs come from the Torah. First from Devarim 6, second paragraph from Devarim 11, and third paragraph, I should know this by heart, is Numbers 15, right? The discussion of the formulation of the Shema is revealed in the Talmud. So we're talking, 2,000 years ago, Talmud times. The rabbis discussed about the obligation of the Shema and what the Shema actually looks like. There was a lot of discussion about the order of the paragraphs, which paragraphs exactly applied, and the result was the formula that we have today, these 3 paragraphs. Interestingly though, we won't go into the Talmud now, but the first 2 paragraphs are actually the core of the Shema, and the third paragraph was appended on later to fulfill a different mitzvah, which we'll talk about a little later on. Yes?
I just have a question. Why is like Shema Yisrael? That's a command. Saying Shema, it's written in the command, form of like Hebrew, and then the rest is kind of like in past tense. Hafta, like uktaftem. Like why is it you wrote, like you loved? Like why is it in past and not in future? And then in the English it writes it in future.
That's a very good point. Anyone want to answer that? Yeah. What do you think?
The past tense is used sometimes as a declaratory. In a declaratory meaning rather than in a purely past.
So that would actually help to build the definition of it being some sort of declaration by what you just said, which is quite interesting.
It is used.
And biblical Hebrew?
Yeah. Also in modern Hebrew.
I've never heard it in modern Hebrew used that way. So.
What about the state, the Declaration of Independence? Declaration of Independence, is that a bit of a or about it?
Not sure. Okay, I'm going to point out a couple of nice ideas, and we'll move through it one by one. The first, if you've ever seen the Shema written either for a mezuzah scroll or in the Torah itself, you'll see something quite interesting about the letters of the first line. You'll see, and it's printed here in the same way, there is a bolded ayin, and at the end, a bolded daled. Has anyone ever noticed that before?
No.
Yes.
What does that word mean if you put those 2 letters together?
And.
So?
And. Yeah, and.
No, that would be yud and daled.
Congregation. Witness.
Congregation.
Witness.
Potentially. Yes, witness. Ed, right? Exactly. So what does that imply? When we have the word ed sort of hidden in that first sentence, witness, how does that fit into the definition of the Shema? What would you say? Declaration? Some sort of testimony?
Yeah, it's got sort of legalese about it.
Okay, so what would be the context there? If it's a legal kind of document or some sort of testimony, what are we testifying? Yeah.
Like, it says that Hashem is one, like it's in Israel, like your God is one, and that's essentially like the main tenet of
Okay, but so imagine you're in a court situation, right? Oh, you couldn't hear? So Alexander was saying you're testifying that God is one, yeah? Yeah. Which is kind of what, the key declaration of faith, you said?
I would say that's like
Right. So the question is, who are we testifying in front of? Like when you go to a court, right? You stand up in the witness box, and the defendant asks you, where were you on the night of the 5th when the murder happened? Right? You're standing in front of the jury or the judge, and you're testifying. You're stating what happened from your perspective.
This is also a statement of death.
Oh.
I said that.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're reaffirming your faith in the hopes that someone will be listening and agreeing with you, and that you're going to the right place.
But who's that somebody?
Hashem.
But the witnesses are confirming the fact that you've attested to that.
But there might be no witnesses.
Well, okay.
Let's say you're all by yourself. You climbed Mount Everest, and you got lost.
Right.
You're stuck. You're freezing to death. You're about to die. You say Shema Yisrael. Who are you testifying to? Who are you saying this to? If it really is a declaration, if it really is a testimony.
Look at this. It's Hashem, Yisrael, Adonai, El, Ahenu, Adonai, Echad.
Yeah.
Every word has got God's name in it, except the last one. There's one.
So you're saying we're testifying to God? Okay, yeah.
I think we're testifying.
Speak up.
I think we're testifying to Israel, to each other, the unity aspect of it, and then also to Hashem. And then, so in a way, it's all one as well.
Okay, and we had you, Marlene, you were saying something about Israel as well?
Well, it says "Hear, O Israel," so I kind of took it that it was to Israel. But I mean,
Israel meaning the people of Israel?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you would say that you
But I mean, it's the intentionality. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like if you're saying it in shul,
Yeah.
you can say it as a prayer,
Right.
and then it's obviously it's to Hashem. But you might say it if you say it, in a congregation. Then there's also the declaratory aspect of it. I'm just saying you can use it a lot of ways.
Okay, so there seems to be two potential scenarios here. Either the scenario where you're reaffirming your faith in front of your fellow congregants in the shul, synagogue, etc. Maybe even at home in front of the people around you, you're on your deathbed, your friends and family are around you, and you're reaffirming, even in this time, even now, I still believe this. That's one option. The other option, you're saying, you're screaming out to God, hey God, I still believe in you. Yeah, I still think you're only one. You're pretty cool, right?
But it's also an instruction.
You're doing that, Daniel, then you wouldn't be using Elohim, which is our word. You would be using Adonai Elohai.
Yeah.
So if you're standing out there and you're actually on your own, you're still saying Elohim. That is an indication that there is other stuff, some other things there that will use them.
Right.
Because otherwise and we know that there are prayers that you say differently if you're in a group or on your own. This
Right.
one you don't.
Okay,
If
someone
you
would
do.
attempt to answer that.
That's
why
not
you would
correct.
say the inclusive Eloheinu, our God.
You say El Melech Ne'aman before you start a prayer if you're on your own.
Pardon?
You say El Melech Ne'aman before you start a prayer if you're
This
on
is
your
true,
own.
but this is an addition to the Shema. The
Yeah,
Shema itself
That's
doesn't
part of the
change.
Shema.
I think
Yeah.
that being a Jew is part of being a nation. There's no such thing as like my God, I think, in being a Jew. I think it's always like a collective. It's like
OMG.
our God, we're part of a community, part of,
OMG.
it's
I like that.
it's never like just mine. It's all of Yisrael. It's not.
LOL.
So
And I
with,
think for my person, I think you're also testifying like to yourself usually, not to anyone else. It's kind of saying like this is, this is just proof. Kind of sometimes you have to say things to yourself over and over again, it's like for you to realize that it's true. And that's what we do. I think we do say Shema so many times a day. You say it at least 3 times a day.
Yeah, yeah.
It's something you have to keep reminding yourself, I think. It's something that you have to keep saying to yourself.
So it seems like we've identified a whole bunch of different elements in the Shema that we're testifying about, that we're declaring. One was mentioned earlier on about the oneness of God. Now you're mentioning the idea of being part of the Jewish community, right? Being all together, the unity. What else would you say is identified in the Shema? What else are we declaring? Any other ideas?
It gives some indication further on of practice, like fill in it was also
right.
They're spelled out there. I don't know if they're in other parts as well, but yeah, that's quite important parts of Jewish practice.
Yeah, we get to further
and religion is a religion of practice anyway, to some extent.
Okay, so you're saying the declaration extends to the practical processes that we express our Judaism,
because we express our Judaism by practice.
Okay.
Brings it into everyday life.
Brings it into everyday life. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it obligates us to do certain things. So within the declaration that we're making, we're also declaring like some of our obligations to the Shem, and maybe that reminds us of it in this way again.
Okay, so there's. I'm not sure I fully understand your point. You're saying there's a connection between the declaration of the oneness of God and the mitzvah?
You're saying, and in addition to
Talk about the information of monotheism.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And the afterlife.
Whoever's around them.
So what do you mean by that? Declaring the oneness of God?
You're declaring the affirmation against monotheism, the firm declaration, the iron-fisted declaration of monotheism.
Okay.
And down here it goes further on again, not to be, not go back to the golden calf days.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Question. Why is God's name mentioned 3 times in that first line?
It's more than 3 times.
Okay, in the most strict, in the basic interpretation of the verse, God's name is 3 times in 2 forms. Right? The 3rd word, the 4th word, and the 5th word are all names of God. Why do we have so many names of God? Anybody have any ideas? Okay, so let me show you something cool. Let's turn to source 2, names of God. There are, in the Jewish sources, in the Talmud, in the Midrash, and in the Kabbalah, there's a lot of discussion around names of God and what they mean, what they imply, what they come to teach us. We know there's always going to be a message that we can learn from the specific name of God that is used in any particular verse. And the Shema is no different. So what I want to do is try to figure out what potential meaning here that we're supposed to take away when we say this opening line. The sources talk about when the world was created, God originally created the world with strict judgment. Everything was based on strict rules that couldn't bend or flex. There was A followed by B that had the consequence of C. Everything could be mapped out logically. Everything could be, given a formula. And everything had consequence. The sources teach us that the word, the name of God that refers to the strict judgment of God, that sort of element of God, is Elohim. And we see this in the creation story. So if you look at source 2, Genesis 1:1, the very first line of the Torah, we see Bereshit bara Elohim as a Shemai be'et haaretz. So the sources tell us that the word Elohim here refers to that strict judgment. And this whole creation story uses this word Elohim right the way through. Later on, when we get to chapter 2 of Genesis, as shown here, you see the introduction of the other name of God that we have in the Shema, the Adonai, the Yod, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. The sources tell us that this name represents the name of the attribute of mercy, of flexibility.
Din and Rachamim?
Yes. In Hebrew, Din is the judgment, strict judgment, and Rachamim is the mercy. So the sources talk about the idea that God attempted to create the world with this very strict structure, strict judgment. but then later on, for whatever reason, combined the two elements together to create the world that we have today. And we see that in the source, because in Genesis it says, they just finished the creation of the world, and God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because that is in the day He rested. And number 4, it says, these are the generations of the heaven and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God, in the Hebrew, both the names are used, Adonai, Elohim. That combination. So what I want you to do is in your groups, for the next few minutes, maybe 5 minutes we'll give you, is to try and figure out why the names of Adonai and Elohim are used in this way in the Shema opening line, what that might mean, the order, placement of the words, etc., the repetition of the words, remembering the idea that the Elohim represents judgment, din, and the Adonai represents mercy, the sort of more flexible attribute of God. So I'll give you guys 5 minutes to do that, and have a discussion, try and figure out what it means, deeper understanding, and we'll go from there.
I still think that Shema Israel, it's actually one Jew talking to other Jews. I guess it would be like a declaration, but it's always declarations to others.
And that would make sense because of what we were saying about before, Elohim, the sort of inclusive, our God.
That's right.
So you're saying speaking to people, the Jewish people.
He's actually declaring it to all other members of the nation. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's cool. All right. Hey, sorry. Okay, we'll leave it there. What I want to do, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen. Calm down. I know you've all got exciting ideas to share. Maybe we need a bit more time. Let's give you another minute then. Okay, we'll pause it there, ladies and gentlemen. What I want you to do is just one group at a time to pick someone to report back your ideas based on how you interpret the wording, the order of the Shema, of this opening sentence, right? We've got the two names of God, one repeated twice. Now, based on what I've told you of the idea, what the names of God represent, what is the deeper meaning that's trying to be shown here, to be taught? So if we can go one group at a time, we'll start with the back over there. What do you guys think? Any ideas that you've come up with?
I think it's also suggested by the graphics around the sentence, but it's the wrapping of justice with mercy. And if you consider Shema as one of the more meaningful name that we say before the soul departs, is that yes, we know you are just, but please be merciful. So it is. I think it's a theme that happens a lot in law. Like we know, and a lot, especially around Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where you say, we know you are just, we know you know everything we've done, so please be merciful.
So, extending that, I like that idea, extending that, why would the element of justice be in the middle as opposed to on the outside? If I understood you correctly, you're saying God's kind of nature is just, but you're asking for mercy? So you're asking for God to wrap that justice and mercy? Is that what you're saying?
It is a facet of God.
Yeah.
We appeal for one of the other facets. We recognize, we acknowledge, the justice of God. And again, this is kind of around the whole thing of the departure of the soul and things like that. Is that we say, in the myth, you are the true judge, but if you around that time.
Yeah. So sorry, yeah, no?
There's a point made in Martin as well that justice is tempered by mercy. So that true justice isn't simply black and white law. There's a compassion human element that if you don't have that, then it becomes true justice. And so mercy on either side ensures that the justice in the middle is its full extent.
I like it. Thank you very much. Okay, this group over here, would you like to share your understanding?
Yeah, that's it was not exactly about acting, about God's behavior, but it was about its essence. So He is, she, God is truly. So we can say that Hashem is His first name, whatever, and that Hashem is Din, He is strict, He is judgment. He is also generosity, rachamim, merciful, and He is one. He is all of that together, and
then
now.
kind of mirrors the verses as well. We feel it mirrors the verses of Shema, but the second one is the judgment one. This is what will happen.
Yeah.
And it's cushioned by the first and the third verses.
And it is, and then He is that, and then you have the Shema that explains what it means.
So you see this is kind of almost like a title sentence, and then the three paragraphs explain those three
I was
components.
saying to Michelle as well that the second sentence that we say, we whisper only.
Hold that thought, we'll get to that point.
Okay. Because no, you have 3 times the name of God, and then you have nothing in the second sentence. But
we'll talk about that point in a second, but yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, guys. That's really cool. Any ideas from the group down here? You're eating. That's cool. That's all right. Any ideas from this group? No?
What was the question?
We're bereft.
Okay. What about the back group? Any fresh ideas? You had some ideas? Okay, but you're gonna have to speak up so that everyone can hear you.
Stand up. Stand up.
Well, I don't know, the feeling this was kind of mentioned, but we thought,
we can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Speak up, speak up.
Please stand up if you can.
Shout.
So we can hear you.
The idea of balance.
Okay.
So you have like the justice, and you have the law, and then you have the part of Hashem where He is flexible, and He would He gives us what we need, and He loves us. So we thought that was kind of balanced. And we also agreed with Michelle about the cushioning, like why it's centered, just because through the mercy, and then you have but do this, but I still love you.
I like it. Okay, very nice. There's some very cool ideas there, and some ideas that I've never thought of as well. So thank you very much for sharing. What I'd like to do is share an idea that I learned that extends everything we've just discussed, to give you a sort of deeper insight. It all comes down to the actual names themselves in terms of the pronunciation of the names as well. Because we look at the word Eloheinu, we can read that, we can pronounce it, we know what it says. Adonai, we only say Adonai because we acknowledge that we cannot pronounce that name of God. In the text here we have the Yud, but of course that's just a representation of the full name, which is Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, which we do not know how to pronounce. Yes?
speaking, you're not allowed to speak God's name in vain, so you have to be careful with the words you use.
True, but in educational context, you can certainly say God's name to stress a point. But you have a point. If it's not in the context of something Jewish, you should be careful to say the name of God. So we have the one in the middle. Okay, I'll follow my dad's advice. Elokeinu, right? Which we can pronounce. And on the outside, we have these two names, well, the same name twice, which we do not know how to pronounce. I think there's a sort of connection between the way, the attributes of God that we talked about just now, and the pronunciation of the actual names. Elokeinu, you could pronounce, you follow the rules of how to read the Hebrew letters. It's a strict, sort of interpretation of each letter and how they sound, and you get the name. And that ties into that strict judgment, right? The very, there's a law, you follow the rule, and you get to an outcome. While on the other side, the Hashem is representing mercy, which is something that is a bit more difficult to define. It's very flexible, very fluid. A person, a father who's merciful to his child that's misbehaved, may be flexible of the punishment or the discipline that he imposes on his child. But you can never give a rule. There's no formula to mercy. It's very fluid. And that seems to tie into this name too. This name that we can't pronounce, that we can't define, represents this attribute of mercy. Yes?
But doesn't the Torah give us, he gives us ways to be merciful to others, and he gives us all these examples on how to be merciful?
Give me an example.
Like in loving the other and in tzedakah. That's I guess that's kind of a form of mercy in a way, of love.
It's a fair point. I think what we can see though is when you have some sort of commandment, for example, charity, tzedakah, there is an explicit formula that says you have to give a certain amount of charity to certain people, except if you are poor or whatever. There's a whole sort of definition. But it's a merciful behavior. So there seems to be that combination of the two elements within that one idea, right? So that's something we see similar here as well, this combination of mercy and justice expressed. And what I was talking about before, when God finished the completion of the world, he had that combo of strict judgment and mercy working together. And I think it's a brilliant example of that combination. Norman, I can see you're about to suggest some idea.
You just said at the culmination of the completion of the world, justice and mercy were part of that. The question is, what was the need for it at that point?
Good question.
I didn't quite understand your question. Can you?
What was the need for justice and mercy?
At the instant of the completion of the world, why was it important to include justice and mercy?
Well, we see it in the Torah that we have judgment based on the name of God alone. We have this idea of judgment during the creation process.
The end.
And
then during that period.
No, it was in the source itself. We see straight after the creation is finished, Shabbat is finished. Then we bring in that second name of God in collaboration with the first name. So the two elements, two attributes together. It's a very good question. I would suggest you go to Sfat in Israel and find a Kabbalistic rabbi and ask him for the answer. I don't know.
I think you can say that creation is messy by nature, and
No.
cannot stand to
Wait, hold on. Let him finish. Let him finish. Yes.
Creation may be messy by nature, but not God's creation.
Did you say merciful or?
Yes, he created merciful. He created people on the sixth day. By the seventh day, he needed mercy.
I like that.
The quality of mercy is strained. What can I tell you? That's strained.
Yes.
I was looking at the text, of the prayer later, and it starts. The second paragraph starts with mercy, because if you hear what I say and you love and da da da, so that's a sort of mercy. And then if you don't, this and this and this and this will happen, which is sort of justice. And in the end, it goes back to mercy. So this is again a sort of, you know, the second paragraph also is this sort of built on this idea of mercy, judgment, mercy. Now, there are midat hatzedek v'midat harachamim. Now, there's a sort of saying that goes with it, isn't it? כמה מידות שהיה לקדוש ברוך הוא. Anybody remembers that?
Sure. I definitely agree with your point though about if you read through the paragraphs of the Shema, you see that concept expressed quite vividly right through. And that's what I was trying to hint when Benoit earlier said about how the Shema, the first line is kind of blown out, so to speak, through the paragraphs of the Shema itself. And I think that's exactly right. This first line kind of is the introduction, the title sentence, with the themes that are going to be expressed in detail in the actual body of the text. So I definitely agree with that point. Last point, and then I'll move on.
I have a question.
Yep.
Where is the first time that this appears?
Sorry?
The Shema.
First time it appears?
Yes.
In the Torah?
Yes.
It's in the Torah?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the first time. What do you mean, the first source?
Mount Sinai.
You have
Mount Sinai,
attributions of what part of the various parts of the Shema, right? But where does the line Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad appear?
Ah, good question. I assume that's the line before Deuteronomy 6:5. So Deuteronomy 6:4. Does anyone have a Chumash? I probably should have looked that up. Yeah, I believe it's in the same. It's just before the start of the first paragraph. I need to double check that.
So my question is, why so late
Good question.
in the Torah does this first appear? When there are many instances,
Yeah.
in fact, and here we're talking about Yisrael, talking about his sons and prognosticating certain events.
Yeah.
Would it not be more effective to have appeared at that moment in time, rather than way down 4 books later?
It's a very good point. Does anyone want to attempt to answer that? Does anyone have an idea of why the Shema itself is so late in the Torah? Because if this is sort of the key declaration of faith, wouldn't we put it on page 1, or potentially at the beginning of the story of Exodus, or
at least sort of sewing it all up? You know, you've got the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the history.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of the laws in Leviticus, and then right at the end, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud.
No,
I have no idea, but then it sews it all up.
So it's kind of like a summary of that whole discussion, and then
late in the Torah.
Yep. I like it. Yep. Any other ideas? Yes, the back.
I think it's also because
Thank you.
I think like the actual receiving of the Torah is more important because it gives us all our obligations and this one because that's what's in like Exodus, and then it comes in later maybe to remind us of our obligation to those mitzvot.
So it's like God gets up and says, okay, here's a bunch of laws, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can do some of that, can't do that. Now we're going to sum it up and say, don't forget, you're obligated to do those things that I just told you. Is that what you're saying? Is that pretty much what you're saying? Kind of, maybe?
They've just got a little lost around there, and so this is just a reminder for them. It's a summary, and it's now you're on the right path to being there. It's more than that.
Sorry, there was one point.
Well, the role of the Shema is a declaration, whatever that we're discussing now.
Yeah.
Its place in the Siddur has actually come about a lot later. The Torah has been written wherever you want to talk about it, but certainly the Siddur as we know about now is a reasonably late period. It has been really, 16th century, 17th century put together? And so at that particular time, well, we don't know exactly, okay, I won't go into the history of it.
It's complicated issue.
But that sentence is not necessarily central in the Torah as it was written then, before the Siddur.
We do know that the obligation to say the Shema dates back to at least the Talmudic period, because the Talmud itself expresses at
But
the
even
base.
that is much later than the Torah.
Agreed. So, yeah. So, I mean, in terms of alternative sources to the Shema itself, which actually, if we'll get into it maybe after the break, which kind of obligates the reader to read the Shema. So it's almost, yes. So?
Parasha Vaychanan, in the very Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad.
Which verse is that? Sorry?
That's the same, so it's right in 4.
Yeah, so I was right. Thank God for that.
There's a lot of ways, I mean, if you want to open a discussion about that specific location and what it says there, there's a lot of very old grammar there. Not just this. Because it is carrying a third party. There's all these, and you know, it's like it's being addressed to Israel by Moses, obviously. And then it says, Shema Yisrael, Shema B'Lasot, so it continues. This is number 3. Number 4, Shema Yisrael Adonai Echad. This is me. It changes. The person who's saying it changes. And then there's the next one says It goes back to that.
And before you had the repetition of the 10 Commandments.
And then number 6 says Asher Anochi. So it's not Moses talking anymore, it's God speaking.
Okay, I haven't prepared for a grammatical analysis of the Shema, so it's a bit beyond me, but you do have a point. There is always stuff we can learn from the grammar and the changes of grammar too. So it's a very valid point. I'll leave that for you to discuss tonight when you get home and you say Shema Alimita, right? I think we'll have a break very soon, yes? So I just want to finish with this idea, based on our discussion around the names of God, the pronunciation of the names as well, and I like this idea. For me, this is one of the things that I think about when I say the Shema, and I think it's quite powerful. When the way I've represented it with these nice squares and boxes, we'll just focus on the circles. In the middle, you've got Eloheinu. You've got the pronounceable name. You've got the name that represents judgment. But it also represents that's something that we can define. It's something that we can know. The element of God that we can understand. Because, it comes back to that idea of judgment. You can strict judgment. You can define a law. There's a formula. The name itself can be pronounced exactly. And that sits in the middle. On the outside is a circle with the other name of God, of course, the name that we can't pronounce, that name that is difficult to understand what it means, mercy, which is difficult to define. And I think this circular image is kind of how every human being sees God. If you imagine we're sitting on the outside, we're Yisrael, so we're in that box, sitting on the outside, looking towards God. The first impression we get is that very cloudy, mysterious, difficult to define, difficult to understand notion of what God is. Right? And I think everybody in this room has been through that, where they're struggling with what is God? Do I believe in God? Do I understand God? What is God? What's going on? What's this thing you refer to as Elohim, as Hashem, etc.? And I think every human being who's ever had some sort of gone through a process of trying to figure out what God means to them, or religion or spirituality, has always been hit with this difficulty of how to define and understand this greater being, this greater power in the universe. That's the outside. But the beautiful thing that's shown here is there is an inside. There is an inner circle. Eloheinu, our God. It's collective. It's defined. It's understandable. It's an element of God that we can embrace, that we can connect to, that we can try and understand. You can see Alexander's shaking her head because she totally disagrees with me based on the discussion we had 2 nights ago. But there is a component of God that we can reach out to, that we can connect to, that we can understand. But for us to do that, we have to penetrate through that outer layer. We have to say, okay, put that all that stuff aside that doesn't make any sense, too complicated, it hurts my head when I think about it. Put that aside and look for that Eloheinu, for that element of God that we can connect to, that we can build faith on, that we can understand and appreciate and build a relationship with. And I think that's, for me, one of the key messages of the Shema, especially in that opening paragraph. There is a God, He is one, but He has multiple attributes. Attributes that we will never understand, that we can never even dream of, that our brains cannot process. But within God, somewhere, and if we reach for it, if we go and find it and search and seek it, we will get that connection to that element of God that makes sense, that we can build a relationship with. And then at the very end of the line we have a chad. It's a reminder. This is not saying that there are two gods or three gods. There's not a mercy God and a judgment God. It's one God, but with many attributes, many components. Some which we can build connections with and some that we will never build connections with. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Have a nice break, get a beer or coffee or whatever, ice cream. And
5 past 8, so a few minute break.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll start part 2. Hope everybody's enjoying themselves. Enjoying the ice cream? Good ice cream? Okay, what I want to do is explore maybe 3 more ideas. We'll see how that goes. The first is what Benoit was jumping the gun with before. When you say the Shema, you look in a Siddur or any order of the service that you might have, you're almost, in every case, just about in every case, you will find the first line of the Shema, followed by an additional line, which is not part of the Shema, which is not in the Torah as one of those 3 paragraphs, and then the first paragraph of the Shema. And the line is, Benoit, what was the line? Right. Now, in most synagogues that I've been to, the tradition is to say this line in an undertone.
Why?
So that is the obvious question.
Except at Yom Kippur.
Except Yom Kippur. Yes,
When we're
true.
like angels. So angels say this line, right?
I don't know. That's a good question. You have to ask the angels.
So we've been told.
The question is, as Michelle has asked, why? Why do we add this additional line between the first line of the Shema and the first paragraph? Why do we say it in an undertone?
Can you repeat the line again?
The line is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Another question, as Benoit did point out before, God's name is not in this line.
But it's the name of his kingdom.
Right. Okay, but the name, that's true, but there's no explicit name of God in the sentence. So all those questions we're going to look at now. So what I want you to do, sorry? Yep. Oh, sorry. Why do we cover our eyes? Can you hold on to that question and we'll get to that straight after this? Remind me. Okay, so source number 3 is from the Talmud Bavli, in Masechet Pesachim, 56, side A. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to read through the paragraph, and then I'll give you a few more minutes in your groups to discuss what this is, what's going on, what's the story, and how does this help solve why we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed after that first line. So I give you guys 2 or 3 minutes, have a read, and start discussing in your groups what's going on. What's the relevance? Sorry? Yes, the translation is for you on page 1. If you look about halfway down, the second line in English, blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom for all eternity or forever and ever. Maybe a different way to translate that. So take a look at source 3 and try and figure out how this applies to this sentence. If it helps to answer this, why we add this extra sentence. Oh, sorry, I cut off a word. It just pretty much says, hence they enacted it. I apologise, there's a couple of words dropped off the end. It pretty much says, hence they enacted it. That's really what you're going to know. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't understand. He said it's always like it's maybe there's one who has children who's not so good, like Israel's children not so good, and that is not very good.
Don't really follow it.
I got one. Just as there is the rabbi, just as there is only one in the heart. So is there only one? How should we answer to the question? So everything is
No, I don't think Ishmael and Isaac were part of the same.
And they don't have my Oh yeah, that was Esau and Ishmael. Us 12. We're good. That's He's absolutely acknowledging that those two were but now he's looking at this quote and saying, all right, it's you on it.
Who asked the question, by the way?
Jacob.
What question?
Or any of you 12 unfit.
Yeah, it's interesting because she departed, so that means it's already here.
Okay, another 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
So Jacob is asking a question. Why did Yaakov say
And his son's answered.
They answered it and said, don't worry about it.
Like Abraham,
my father died?
they obviously had problems. My dad was in this man, one of my kids.
But the interesting thing is, also, he died, right? Right?
Well, as you said, it's like
And did he tell them that this night for them in the end of days? No, he died doing that. He's also
When was that? Oh, well.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Okay, what I'd like is for one volunteer from the room to explain just a very simple understanding of the passage. What actually happened? What's going on? Volunteer? Any volunteers?
We volunteer.
No one?
Not confusing.
You don't have to.
Unaccustomed as I am. It appears that Jacob was nearing the end of his days. And being somewhat of a prophet, he wanted to tell his sons and his family what will be happening.
Right.
And then the Shekhinah, the eminence of what God represents left him, so he no longer had that ability to prophesy. And he said, perhaps there is someone among you who is as evil as the son of Abraham and Isaac. And all of them at once said, no, Shema Yisrael, Ad Hashem Elokeinu, Ad Hashem Echad. And that satisfied Jacob. And he said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus. Then the rabbis in the Midrash started to say, well, you know, Moses didn't say this. Why should we have to say it? And presumably the answer is because Yaakov said it. Now, if we follow along with the same precept of Abraham establishing Shacharit, and Mincha, Isaac, and Jacob, Mariv. Although one shouldn't have been Mariv, should have been Abraham, if we start the day at night.
That's a good question. Pass?
But basically, I think that encapsulates what it's saying.
Okay. Does anyone want to delve a little bit deeper? Maybe there's a deeper message in this. Thank you very much, Norman. That's 100% correct, from what I understood at least, although I could be wrong. Does someone want to delve a little bit deeper? Is there something more we can learn from this? Yes?
A couple of things. One is reminding people here that Jacob at that stage already called Israel. So his sons were not declaring Shema Yisrael, they were actually, hear you, Daddy.
Interesting. I'll leave it about that.
And the other thing was that actually, when I'm thinking about it, and I don't kill me please, but Ishmael has done nothing. Neither has Esav done. Because what he's done is because he's been deceived, right? They were not really wicked, whereas the 10 sons of Jacob, well, he's been deceived. He's been deceived as...
No, he was killing for pleasure. He was
a hunter.
wicked.
He still was deceiving his brother.
I don't want to open a discussion about Ishmael and Esau.
He raped a woman.
Right.
Sorry, that's why I said don't kill me.
I think we can.
Right, Ben Weiss.
I think it's a very.
But what I'm trying to say is that these 10 sons of Jacob were actually quite bad because of what they've done to Joseph.
Right.
So
as a whole, they were. Esau and Ishmael.
But if you read strictly the text of the Torah, neither Esau nor Ishmael have done anything as half as bad as the 10 sons of Jacob. And so they're being a little bit dishonest here. And Jacob is usually
Alright. Yes, Michelle?
At the end of his life, it says.
We were talking about the beginning of the paragraph that this vision that Jacob was about to share about the end of days, and suddenly the vision, the Shekinah, left him.
Right.
Is that, and there's nothing more said about it here. Does that also mean, should we be thinking about the visions more?
I'll ask you that. To be honest, I'm only presenting this paragraph as a very simple understanding of why we say Baruch Shem Kavod. So as Norman, thanks to Norman, he explained exactly what it says in the simple understanding. And I just wanted to see if you guys had anything deeper. To give you a compliment, Rashi was all about the simple understanding too, and he's considered one of the biggest muffers of our time. So,
Could
yes.
also be something to do with the unity idea that we're talking about, being part of the one nation that has the one God. There seems to be, to me, there's a little bit of a link there because of what the sons their answer to him was, not only is it one God, but we are all like one unity. We are all your sons.
So even though individually we may cause problems or do bad, as a collective, we will express the positive lineage going forward. And of course, they are the precursor of the nation of Israel, who the whole idea is to be this united nation going forward. Any other thoughts of this one before I move on? So essentially, this is the key source that the rabbis bring as the reason why we say this Baruch Hashem for God. Out of respect for the forefather, Jacob, who said this in response to Shema Yisrael, who are we to say that he, that he's just a nobody and Moshe is the be all and end all? We put this into our liturgy. However, out of respect for Moses, who we consider the greatest prophet, we say it silently in an undertone, because we acknowledge that it's not in the official text as per Moses' rendition, but Jacob did say it as a response.
So in the Torah, the Shema Yisrael wasn't really said in that context. It was said much later. It wasn't in Bereshit.
True. There is. I was discussing with Norman about this before, whether this is actually in the Torah, Jacob saying this. It's not. I believe it's not. It's just a Gadic, Midrashic story. Whether it really happened or not is another question, another debate. But based on the pure understanding of the text, we can assume that it happened, and therefore we have a valid reason to make this conclusion. If that makes sense. Yes, no, a bit loose. I'll move on. Oh, we've got some questions. Yes.
What actually does it mean?
Yep.
Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. What's it referring to? The world, the universe, everything?
Okay. Anyone want to try and answer that? Well, what is the meaning of that sentence? Is that what you're asking? Why do we say those words? Blessed be the name of his glorious kingdom. Ideas? Suggestions?
Eternity, heaven and hell.
Okay. Expand.
Well, there's life if you believe what we believe, some of us believe. There's life after death, and therefore it's eternity, forever and ever, without end.
Okay. So would this be an additional declaration of faith?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Oh, sorry, Alexander was first. Yep, Alexander. Do you have another point though? No? Okay, yep, no.
It still is a complete sentence. Blessed be his kingdom forever and ever. It's perfectly valid.
Yeah.
But we're going beyond his kingdom. We are going to HaKadosh Baruch Hu itself to add glory.
Okay.
I don't think it requires very much more than that.
So what I'll do now is I'll tie Norman's idea with Benoit's idea before, was a question around why does it not say the name of God in the sentence? Why are we blessing his glorious kingdom as opposed to God himself? What's going on? So a rabbi taught me a few years ago this nice idea. When we say Shema Yisrael, we explicitly say the names of God, or at least the ones that we can pronounce. And if we back to the understand before the break, this idea that we can build some sort of relationship with God. There are maybe attributes of God that we can connect to. Baruch Shem Kavod is a reminder not to be too high up and think that you can know God entirely. To think that we said Shema Yisrael, I know God, I can connect to all of God and understand everything about Him. No, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto L'Olam V'Ed. Blessed be His name. Blessed be the name of His glorious kingdom. What does it mean, His kingdom? It means what we can see, what we experience. We live in a physical world, well, a combo of spiritual and physical, but day to day we're experiencing physical things. We observe and we live in we live in the kingdom of God. And this is the reality. This is what we really perceive as reality. This is the element of connection to God that we can really achieve. It's through the physical, spiritual world that we dwell. And to remind ourselves that we can never understand the fullness of God. So that's the idea there. So we make this declaration of faith. I believe in God. There's one God. I can build a connection to Him. But remind myself, I live in this world, and this is the only sort of gateway to God that I have. Questions, comments? Someone totally disagree? Yes?
Would not the kingdom and the blessing, wouldn't that also be synonymous with
So you're saying it's just a metaphor for God? What did you say?
But I think because blessed is the name of this glorious kingdom for all eternity, like that is like the kingdom, right? That is that's synonymous with Hashem.
I would say that to say that it's synonymous with God, with Hashem, is exactly the opposite of what I was trying to achieve. in the point before. That instead we're saying we can observe the kingdom, we can dwell within the kingdom, but God extends beyond the kingdom. That would be my answer to you. Yep.
This earth where we're living, this is the kingdom?
This is a kingdom that we live in.
I thought the kingdom was where God dwelt.
So we could go into that real briefly. I don't want to touch on anything too Kabbalistic because I'm no expert. But the Kabbalah describes. I'll answer your point. The Kabbalah describes this idea that God withdrew from Himself and filled that void with this world that we exist in, but paradoxically exists within the void as well. So in a way, where God dwells is here. We're dwelling within God, and God is dwelling within us. I want to leave it there because it's a very complicated idea, and I'm no rabbi, I'm certainly not a Kabbalistic rabbi, to go into it.
Can I
Yep. Yep.
Shem, Kavod, Malchuto. Kavod is work.
Honor.
Of His kingdom.
Yep.
This is the name.
The honor of His
Honor
kingdom.
of His kingdom. What does that actually mean?
Means exactly that.
Doesn't it say
The
Shema?
honor of His kingdom.
How does it Shema?
Well, the way they translate it here, blessed with the name of His glorious kingdom. So maybe
The name of the kingdom.
the glorious, the honorable kingdom, potentially.
Are we blessing the kingdom or God's name?
It's
I've
the
always
name.
wondered why do we bless the name?
Yeah.
Is the name not another way to say it?
Well, I mean, we have this idea of saying the word Hashem, which literally means the name, in place of God's name, as a way to make that connection to that name of God, the connection to God, without attempting to pronounce the name that we can't pronounce. So, in a way, there is this connection between the word Shem that is used in reference to God. But by using the word Shem, it's almost like on purpose saying, okay, we're not going to define God here. We're going to create a link, like a hyperlink, right? Shem is like this hyperlink to the greater thing that we cannot fully understand. Yes? Norman? Yeah.
As you said, sorry.
Yep.
So I go. You said, do you have any objection with Oshem Kavod Malchuto, right? And I have a tiny one. You said that's because we can only experience what we can experience, and that's why we won't be able to know God entirely. That's why we don't necessarily say it. But Moshe didn't say it. Moshe was a man. He went to heaven arguing with the angels.
Yeah.
We are all potentially able to do this. And we are all potentially able to know God in these fully...
So I will answer you simply by saying this. The second you can get to Moshe's level, you can start saying Baruch Shem Kavod.
Probably.
Fair point?
Probably.
French know quite a bit, I
yeah,
believe.
so
Beware of it.
I agree. Okay,
So
Moshe is the greatest prophet that ever lived, right? He could dwell on the planes beyond we can even imagine. So he maybe had more of an understanding of God, but did he have a full understanding of God? He was, at the end of the day, only human? Good question. I'm not sure.
But he had a better understanding probably than the angels themselves, because the angels can't enjoy the challah on Shabbos. They are not.
But remember, the angels, as Michelle pointed out, angels say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'olam V'ed. The angels acknowledge that even they can't fully understand the great God.
How many names?
Yep.
How many names are there for God?
A lot.
Right. So it could conceivably.
Yeah.
That one of his names represents the kingdom.
Okay. Potentially.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, go on.
No, I'm not sure that you can really separate the two as saying, I think you can conceptually separate them and say like, okay, this is what our understanding is, but I'm not sure that they are synonymous.
I mean, I totally agree that at the end of the day, many words that we use are references to godly attributes. There's no doubt, including the names of God themselves. I think names are used in different ways to push different messages. So the first line, the Shema, we've learnt about the message that's trying to be portrayed there. And then in the second line, the Baruch Shem Kavod, there's a different message which uses different words in reference to God for a reason. So that was what I was trying to get to. But you're right, many names, many words. Another example, makom, which means place, is often used in reference to God. So the question is, what does that mean? Why is that word used over other words?
When is it used?
Makom, for example, we say on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Baruch HaMakom, this is the place, in reference to God. There's a whole Kabbalistic understanding of that too, won't go into it. Let's move on. Any last comments? No? Cool. Sweet. So, I just want to go through, how are we doing for time? We're good. Okay, I want to touch on one of the key ideas that is expressed in the Shema within the paragraph themselves. We're focused on the first two sentences, and as you can see, you can speak for 2 hours just on, 12 words, right? So, welcome to Judaism. So, what I want to do is look at the first line of the first paragraph. So, if you turn back to page 1, where it says Deuteronomy 6, 5 to 9, first paragraph. It says, in Hebrew, "V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol me'odecha," which translates to, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your resources or potentially possessions. There are slightly different translations of that word me'odecha. Might is another word. Mights or strengths potentially. But yeah, they're all kind of relatively connected, right? The idea of using some sort of power that you possess. Oh, you possess might, right?
No.
No? Okay. So what I want you to do in your groups, 5 minutes, that one line alone. What does it mean? What does it mean to love God? Why does it point out these three elements? What is heart? What is soul? And what is resources, possessions, might? What is all that about? Give you guys a couple minutes to talk about it. Go for it. 2 minutes. It's a quick one. 2 minutes discussion. Go.
About being yourself, everything.
Why not just say you?
Because that represents you. It represents your strength, your soul is
Could be your heart is your life, your things in your life. Your soul can be beyond life.
But why break it down to specific things when probably when one would say
Just love God.
like what? Give me a word that represents.
It's a spirit realm.
you shall love your God.
Now, tomorrow.
We're not defining time here.
No, we are, because we're saying soul.
Or your heart.
Heart is your living existence. And might is to give you the strength so we can defend ourselves and fight for God. Those who are evil, smart, whoever, fight against them.
Now the question is, since we believe in God, why do we
The rational side.
does God need defending?
Now, that's a good point. Because we're the chosen people.
That's even worse, that's the
Otherwise, there would be no...
We know. Do the rest matter?
Well, if we like that holiday, we wouldn't.
It says defend, it says love. It doesn't say defend, it says love.
No, with might. Strength.
Love with all your might.
No. But the strength could be, you said you could not withhold with all your might. So you can love with all your might. You know, I really love that.
Might is strength. Because that. It's the most, it's the crux of the whole Shema.
That's what some said, kind of
30 more seconds.
Okay.
But it's interesting that it says love, not obey, not follow, not, it just says love.
Yes, because if you obey your thoughts, if you do it with love, you do it because it's the right thing to do. Like some people like to speak out, you do wrong things, you don't need to.
5 more seconds, guys.
I suppose it could be almost saying, well, if you don't feel this way, then
Don't do it, do something else.
forget it.
Write a book or
You either love me or you don't. You know, it's like don't just pay me lip service. Probably in there. Don't pay lip service. Don't pay me lip service and say, oh, yes, it's a good version of you. To love me.
So what you're doing is you're reinforcing each of these conditions.
but you're doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because you're under pressure, not being forced to do it. It's genuine.
I lied about the time. I lied about the time. Let's still go. You guys got something?
I want you to
The Shema come across
Yeah,
like,
I'll
I'm
expand on that.
Almighty God, you will do it. But actually, if you actually love me,
not because it's not telling you
That's a popular thing for Western culture.
The question is, what does that mean? You say your heart's in, what do you actually
telling
that's why I see like a way
sort of stand up
Well, this was that was Roman philosophy that the physical sports and in certain parts where
the blood comes through the
it's free from different medical
marriage, the dowry.
where fanatic comes from. So that kind of thing. Yeah, so these attributes of the on our physical attributes show emotions.
Not just because they make you
It's quiet.
that's why it's a mastery transformation. You remember these things.
And so there are things
Without
things like
how can I know this off
certain
by
things
heart?
like blood as well. When they're looking at blood, they can tell if you were a teen person. So there were attributions where the blood pressure they recognise. No, not rationally, emotions.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Not where we know now.
Sorry? Because I can't spell Maori. Well, the Maori is not a written language, so right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to pause you there. Excuse me. Hello. Group at the back. I know you're intense in study, but I'm going to have to cut you short. Thanks for that, everyone. Before I get, no, actually, we'll start with feedback from the group. I'll get each group to throw up an idea, a very quick summary of what you think is going on. What are they trying to say? What is God trying to say? What's the message? What are we supposed to learn from that first line? We'll start with the group at the back.
Well, I mean, the whole thing, heart, soul, and mind, if you like, is our translation of chose to build up. Because kind of looking at your picture at the page is like a physical world. So you cover the emotions, the mind, and the body. Then we got stuck with what does the commandment love actually mean, because it's very hard to command someone to love someone else. This is where we get stuck, we don't know.
It's a very good question, and hopefully I can answer that for you very soon. Hold that thought. This group, what would you like to share? Anything?
You decided that just being God conscious in everything you do and say and think, being God conscious in everything you do and say and think, but we also got stuck on love.
Okay, so two groups saying, what is this love business? Okay.
And also how to like three places with your heart, your soul, and your mind.
Yeah.
And we were able to distinguish the three.
Yeah, basically the heart, it's from whatever makes you move, so it's whatever motivates you. The soul, we said, oh, it's hard. How do you want to do it from your soul? But it's about amending your midot and the way your characters, the aspect of your characters. You have to be more patient. You have to be more generous. You have to be more, etc. And then you will change the way you act. And then from your resources, that everything you do is for God's consciousness. If you want to buy some food, buy some nice food for Shabbos, for example. And then everything you do, if you buy nice candlesticks for Shabbos candles, or I said Michelle was not happy, but I said we could leave eating dog food in cans. That's crap, but you have to have respect for your own body, for your own person. You shouldn't behave as a dog. So you should buy some nice food, like at Soul Cafe, and and that's it.
Very nice. Okay. You have one extra thing there?
Just live up high.
Yeah.
There's 2 beds in there. And the idea, it's not just your heart, it's the ability to go with Yetzer Tov or Yetzer Hara. It's be able to go either way. And we have free will to make that choice. And that's what the second bed represents from what I've read.
That's very nice. I've never heard that before. Thank you for sharing. That's really cool. Thanks, group. Number 2. Number 3, what do you guys have? Anything to add?
Benoit stole our thunder.
Oh, we said everything we wanted to say.
We talked about we also broke up into the heart, and we were talking about onto Roman philosophy, because we only got the English here for us to understand it. We were talking about the physical store of the heart for emotions, and with our soul, obviously, we took that into whatever interpretation you want to have the soul for your spiritual realm or your, that kind of thing. And with your resources, and we were talking about that from an emotional plus a physical point of view. So we thought it was stripping back humans to essential core and stripping you to, again, bring about a submission to God.
I like it. Thank you very much. This group, want to add anything?
I'll say. The heart is the living, the soul is the eternity, the might is the strength, and the love is the choice. If you're commanded to do something, you must do it, the mitzvah. If you love God, you do it out of choice. So your choice is to do the commandments, and the commandments are living now and for eternity and with all your strength.
I like it. Thank you very much.
And we also thought that it speaks so much about love in there, but it's all very well to give the Shema and say, here's this declaration, do this or else. But if you actually don't love Hashem, if you're not doing it with love, what's the point?
You're doing it by force.
Yeah, then it's just somebody telling you to do something that you won't buy into.
Right. Very nice. Thank you. Group number 4. Group number 5. Would you like to add something?
I'm going to throw out some Buddhist stuff.
It's welcome.
Just for the mix. So there's this idea of like samadhi, of how you know God. And there's like 2 ways that you can do this. You can do it by like knowing it in yourself and like in your heart and like with your love and with your intent. And then there's knowing Hashem like the outside way and everything, which I think would be like the soul part. Just to like throw a bridge there. And I don't know, the resources, we thought that was like directly linked to action and like your intent.
Sweet. Thank you very much. Anything else from your group? Well, thank you everybody for feedback. Beautiful ideas there. For me, what I've been taught and what I feel connects to everything you've just said. It comes down to the definition of love. How do we define love? When you say I love somebody, what does that really mean? And we take it one step further. When you say you love God, we talk about, the Torah commands us to love God. How do you love God? How do you love something that's not physical, that's not a human being or an animal? We can understand love between humans, potentially between humans and animals. But how do we go the next step and love God? So God gives us a definition. He says there are 3 components to love. The first being expressed here in the Hebrew, the heart. The second being the soul. And the third being resources or might. But what does that mean? What does each component mean? So the heart. Turn to the source number 4. Little man. His name's Bob, Rav Bob. He's wearing a pair of tefillin. Later on in this first paragraph, there is an instruction, a commandment about binding tefillin on oneself. There is a parallel between the actual boxes of tefillin, the straps themselves, how they sit on the body. There's a clear parallel, in my mind at least, between that and this idea of love and how it's defined with the heart, the soul, and the resources. We'll start with the heart, seeing it's the first one. The heart, to me, when I think heart, I think emotion. Now, of course, we know emotions are experienced in your mind, in your brain, but in common culture, we've always expressed this idea of emotion driven from the heart. Right? You feel love, you draw a heart when you think about love. It's when you're experiencing a highly emotional activity, your heart pumps faster, it pumps more blood, the blood goes around your body and you become sort of impassioned by that extra blood in that emotional moment. So both physiologically and symbolically, the heart has this parallel with emotion. On the tefillin, we wear the arm tefillin, the box that sits on the muscle. The commandment is that it points towards the heart. If you're right-handed, you have to wear the strap on your left arm, which, according to some people told me that the heart is more towards the left if you're right-handed, apparently. So that makes sense. The box is closer to the heart, it's pointing towards it, and that's that symbol there. The heart representing emotion. The next is the soul. The soul, to me, can be both the spiritual connection that you can build with God, but also the intellectual, the rational, the joy you get by learning a piece of text and figuring out and going, wow, I understand it. I've concluded what this means. And that's represented by the head tefillin, the box that sits on the head. It's near the brain, the source of rationality, of logic, of thought, of intellect. But what's interesting about the head tefillin is it points upwards. Now, for me, that's very symbolic of pointing towards the heavens. The idea that the source of all intellect and all rationale, it comes from God. And it's given to us as a gift into our brains. And finally, or your might or your possessions, that's represented by the straps around the bicep all the way down your arm and the toe. This is the physical element. We have muscle. We can use our muscles and tendons and all the different parts of our bodies to do things. And in fact, we know that Judaism is very much about action, about different traditions which involve rituals, doing things, but also being a good person by expressing your charitable side, like we talk about the merciful side, giving tzedakah, helping old people. So bring it all back. What does love mean according to the Jewish definition? How should you love God? By combining those three elements. Combining the emotional with the intellectual with the physical. And you'll see that if you look at any particular, I see you, one second. If you look at any particular mitzvah, any particular obligation, commandment in Judaism, you can always see it on those three levels. You can see that there's, not always, there are exceptions actually, but for the most of the time, you can see that there are three levels. You can see there is a rational, logical component. You can see that there needs to be an expression of your emotion. We talk about the idea that every mitzvah you do needs kavanah, needs an intention. So that's sort of emotional component. And then the physical, how we actually carry out that particular ritual or obligation. And I think that's the key message that we get from this sentence. How do we love God? By fulfilling His obligations that He gives us through that triple process. Question?
My reading of resources, and this is something that we were talking about a little bit, perhaps it's more than ourselves as well, so connecting that with the idea of Israel, us, being in to understand. I thought of resources as whatever we have to give, so we bring ourselves in person, we are our mind, our heart, our etc., but we're also social. So tonight is an example of the Israel.
Yeah.
Statement of us together connected through commentary, through time, through a whole lot of different ways. So I suppose resources for me at the end says it's more than ourselves, it is us.
I like it, and I would extend it even further. I I would say you could apply that same idea to the emotional component and the intellectual component. I mean, think about it. How many times have you been at a rock concert and you felt that sort of emotional experience that's shared by the whole group? You're all in the mosh pit, right? I know Sally's familiar with it. So, you know, it's a shared emotional experience. Even sitting here today, you know, someone says something and everyone in the room's like, I have that, you know, it's something you feel here. Same with intellect. You can, you can share ideas just by communicating with voice, with words. You can have a shared experience on a rational, intellectual level. And you could probably say the same with a spiritual experience. Maybe you're in a synagogue or wherever, and there's this sort of united experience of elevation. So certainly, I agree with you. It's both a message of a personal declaration, but of also a communal declaration as well. Yes?
I thought when you said about strength, about physical stuff, and it struck me, I don't remember the breakdown, but I do remember that all the muscles and tendons in our bodies equals 613, which is the mitzvot we are supposed to do. You have the positives and negatives, and so that's equal. Our body, our whole body is supposed to act. Every movement should be towards basically the mitzvot. And second, I thought about the cells and heart and body for the Tiflin. We know that when Moses met God for the first time, God told him that he would pass in front of him, and Moses saw that God was wearing tefillin. That's in the commentary.
So there's two ways you could understand it, right? You could either say God was literally wearing these boxes. How does God wear boxes? I don't know, right? Boxes strap. Or we could take the metaphoric understanding based on exactly this. That the expression that God projected to Moses was this idea of loving God through that triple connection.
Yeah. And you have also the rabbi told me that it's just that God is wearing tefillin, but what is inside his tefillin are different from ours, and I forgot, Rashi says what is written in his tefillin. I don't remember the verse, but basically that we should connect to him, but he also connects to Israel. And this is the thing. This is the alliance.
And I think if we bring it back to that very first word in the Shema, you know, sorry, the first word of the first paragraph, love, you shall love. What does it mean to love somebody? Well, it's both directions. It's very hard to love someone without being loved back. I mean, is that really love if it's only one way? So I think exactly your point. By loving God, by building that relationship on those three sort of planes with God, God makes the same attempt to build the same relationship coming back through His love, which I think is expressed in the second paragraph of the Shema. Which, do we have enough time to keep going? Yes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Anybody not happy with that? Oh, that's good. Okay, so what I'll do then, I'll refer to this Shema prayer guide. Sorry, you can type. Okay, we'll make it 7 minutes, right? The Shema, good number, right? Shema prayer guide is I've just given a very quick summary of each of the components of the Shema, just as a reference. You can reject them if you don't believe them, but this is kind of what I've learned and what I feel is a key things that you can learn from each of the paragraphs. Of course, it's not restricted to this. There's a lot more to learn too. So I'll just quickly run through it as a way to summarize the Shema, what the key messages are. We've only touched on a tiny little amount. So, feel free to explore more yourself. There's a huge amount of literature written online and in different books. So, go learn. So, Shema Yisrael itself, we've talked about it being a declaration of faith around the oneness of God, the idea of this combo of the merciful aspect of God combined with the strict judgment, the ultimate judge, the din with the rachamim. We've talked about this relationship with God, that through our expression of love on those three planes, we can build this relationship with God. we can get through the cloudy, mysterious element of God and say, okay, there's something in God that's tangible to me. I can build that connection. The first paragraph, we talk about love. What does it mean to love God? We talked about the three planes, the heart, the soul, possessions, representing the emotional, desire, the intellect, the rationale, and the body, the physical. What we didn't touch on is there's a message in the first paragraph about the importance of education. The idea that these messages, which we hold so strongly to us, should be passed on from generation to generation. And then we talked about the tefillin being an obligation on men, but as a symbolic ritual that we do to remind us of this three-part connection that we build with God. It also mentions the mezuzah, which is the box, well, it's not the box, it's the scroll within the box that we put up on every door and gate of our home. And the idea behind that, there's a lot we can say on it, but very quickly, it's once again a physical reminder of these sorts of ideas. So every time we walk through a Jewish door, we see the mezuzah, some people kiss it, but just the sight, you click, you go, I remember, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I'm building a relationship with God, even when I'm walking through a door frame. The second paragraph, in a nutshell, talks about reward and punishment. Consequence. If you fulfill God's obligations with love, genuine love, you strive to build that relationship, you'll be rewarded. And the way it's expressed in the second paragraph is about opportunity. You'll be presented with opportunity, positive opportunity to do more, to grow, to build relationships with people. And on the flip side, if you don't, if you run away from this obligation of loving God, the punishment will come as a negative consequence, a removal of opportunity. And finally, the third paragraph, which, as I said way at the beginning, is not one of the core paragraphs of the Shema. It was appended on later. And the reason was that there was an additional obligation to remember the exodus of Egypt. And this particular paragraph mentions the exodus of Egypt. So as a way of killing two birds with one stone, it was chucked on the end of the Shema to fulfill that mitzvah. It also has the discussion of the obligation of tzitzit, the strings that you wear when you have a four-quarter garment. And once again, what is tzitzit? They're a symbol, a symbolic reminder to remind us every second that we wear them of this triple plane connection that we're building to God. I think, just to summarize, Judaism is a very symbolic religion. We need rituals and objects and symbols to remind us of what we should do, what our core values are, how we should interact, how we should build relationships. And the Shema is reminding us of those key values that we hold true, the relationship that we should have with God, how we interact in the world, and also reminds us of the symbols that are placed out for us to build that relationship. So what I'd like from you guys is next time you read the Shema, if you do, but if you do, to think about the deeper meaning. Think about what we learned today. Think about what sort of connection do you have with God or to the world, or however you perceive your place in life. Try to meditate a little bit on that idea. Think about the deeper meaning. What can I achieve? How can God help me? What is this relationship that I'm trying to build? So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Just before you go, I'd like to refresh you about the rest of the plan for the coming month. Next week, Rabbi Alima is speaking for the last time in the Ora Torah series. Last time he spoke